Nord report the best information in the global internet. I encourage you to subscribe and like and invite you to watch. Serhiy Lysak, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast Military Administration, reported via a message on Telegram that Russia's armed forces launched 2 artillery attacks on the Nikopol sector last night, Ukrinform reports. The aggressor attacked the Myrov community in the Nikopol sector twice during the night, firing nearly 15 shells from heavy cannons, the message reads. The ensuing attack damaged 2 residential houses and 3 outbuildings, as well as cars and the power grid. However, no casualties were reported. The anti-aircraft siren in Kiev was active for 3 hours. Ukrainian forces accuse Russia of launching its 6th air attack on Kiev this month alone, during which the anti-aircraft alarm was active for more than 3 hours. Initial reports indicate no damage or casualties, according to officials. Serhiy Popko, head of the military administration in Kiev, maintains that Russia used Iranian Shahed drones in the attack. So far, no casualties or significant damage have been reported. The invasion of Kiev on Tuesday morning came a day after Russia issued a warning of severe retaliatory measures following a drone incident on its capital, Moscow, some 500 kilometers from Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak held a telephone discussion this morning on further steps in defense cooperation. In the conversation, Zelensky mentioned Russia's daily attempts to destroy the historic center of Odessa and its port infrastructure. "We must defend Odessa," he urged on Twitter, calling for increased assistance to Ukrainian air defense forces. "We discussed our future defense cooperation and the course of Ukrainian offensive operations," he supplemented. Zelensky and Sunak have strengthened their relations since Russia's invasion, with both leaders visiting the other's country on several occasions. To date, Britain has provided Ukraine with some £4,600,000,000 in military aid and an additional £1,500,000,000 in economic and humanitarian aid. We touched on Russia's daily attempts to destroy Odessa's historic core and port infrastructure. "We must secure Odessa. It is required to urgently intensify Ukraine's air defense to protect our cultural heritage and continue the Black Sea Grain Initiative," Zelensky said, referring to Tuesday's dialogue between the 2 leaders. Zelensky also expressed that he had raised the issue of Ukraine's pursuit of NATO membership, echoing calls by other senior Kiev officials to speed up the country's accession to the pact. With regard to NATO, we saw from our side the acceptance of a joint declaration of support de la Ukraine by the G7 at the NATO summit in Vilnius, and the subsequent addition of more countries, he added. "We also synchronized our next steps to strengthen it with specific security guarantees at the bilateral level." The head of government also conferred with Zelensky on efforts to revive the Black Sea Grain Agreement, stressing that the UK is working closely with Turkey, which played a key role as a mediator in the early stages of the agreement, in an effort to reactivate it. Discussing the issue of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the leaders came to a consensus on the importance of ensuring that Ukrainian grain can be exported to global markets, Number 10 noted. The head of government noted that Britain is working closely with Turkey to reactivate the grain agreement, and we will continue to use our position as President of the United Nations Security Council to continually condemn Russia's conduct. Russia is increasingly launching attacks on merchant ships in the Black Sea region, and Britain is closely monitoring the situation with our partners, the Prime Minister added. Ukrainian forces have achieved triumphs on the southern theater of hostilities, according to military reports from Kiev and reports from conflict sites. Spain's defense ministry announced Monday that more Leopard tanks are heading to Ukraine as part of a new batch of military and humanitarian equipment being supplied by Spain. The shipment, which began its journey from the port of Santander, is expected to be delivered to Ukrainian forces in early August. The shipment includes 4 Leopard 2A4 tanks, 10 M113 armored personnel carriers, 10 trucks, 1 multi-role armored vehicle, 5 ambulances, including 2 armored vehicles. Spain had earlier delivered 6 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine as part of its commitment to transfer 10 such machines. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced in July that Madrid would transfer 4 additional Leopard 2 tanks to Kiev. According to the Spanish Defense Ministry, a mobile field hospital with equipment for surgical operations arrived on Ukrainian territory on Sunday. A Russian delegation, led by Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, has planned a 3-day meeting in North Korea starting Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry and North Korean state media reported. North Korea is one of the few countries that has openly expressed its support for the Russian incursion into Ukraine and blames the United States and the West for the conflict. The visit, which is intended to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the end of the Korean conflict, will help strengthen military ties between Russia and North Korea and will be a key moment in the process of developing cooperation between the two countries, the Russian defense minister expressed. Confirmation of the visit by the Russian delegation was reported by North Korea's state-run daily, KCNA. Andriy Kovalev, spokesman for the Ukrainian General Staff, reported Tuesday successes on the Staromayorsk direction on the Berdyansk front, located south of Veľká Novosiolka. The General Staff said in a Tuesday communiqué that Russian forces remain focused on halting the Ukrainian advance along the southern front, indicating strong opposition. At the same time, Ukrainian defense forces continue to conduct offensive operations on the directions of Melitopol and Berdyansk, consolidating their positions, the communiqué added. Some of these offensive operations toward Melitopol are taking place south of Kiev, and some progress has been recorded in the last 24 hours. Reports from the Frontline from the Institute for the Study of War report that Ukrainian forces have managed to move the front about 1 kilometer, 700 meters, something more than a mile, toward the northeastern outskirts of the village of Robotyne. This advance has been documented by several Russian military bloggers. Some of them reported that Ukraine changed the direction of its attack in the region, bypassing Russian fortifications with the support of its own artillery and pushing back Russian forces. They managed to force units of the Russian armed forces to withdraw to more favorable positions, Russian military blogger War Gonzo stated. The UN nuclear agency has warned that anti-personnel mines have been spotted at the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has been on site for several months, repeatedly expressing concern about the safety of the plant. The presence of such explosive charges within the plant does not comply with IAEA safety standards and nuclear safety guidelines and puts additional stress on plant personnel. Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, stated. Nonetheless, he said, the potential explosion of mines located between the plant's internal and external security barriers should not affect nuclear safety and safeguard systems. The IAEA team was aware of the earlier deployment of mines around the plant, and they were told it was a military decision and in a military-controlled area, Grossi said. The IAEA team noticed several mines deployed in the buffer zone between the inner and outer protective barriers of the power plant. Grossi added, noting that the mines were in an area with restricted access to which the plant's technical personnel do not have access and were located away from the installation. Grossi described the presence of explosives at the plant as incompatible with IAEA safety standards and nuclear safety guidelines. Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, has repeatedly called on leaders around the world to pressure Russia to hand over control of the plant to the IAEA. Russia announced Tuesday that its troops have moved 2 kilometers along a section of the front line in eastern Donetsk, Ukraine. All of our units in total have moved by 2 kilometers, reaching a 4-kilometer depth of the front line toward Lyman, the Defense Ministry reports in its communiqué. It added that the military has taken over Serhiyivka as part of effective deterrence measures. Russia launched a new offensive along the northeastern sector of the front, shaped like a crescent, a couple of weeks after Ukraine launched its own assault further south in early June. Moscow said on July 11th that it had moved 1.5 kilometers closer to Lyman, a strategic railroad point that Ukraine recaptured in October. It appears that the Russians are planning to force the Ukrainians to abandon their offensives on newly captured towns such as Bakhmut and to redeploy their forces to defend the front in Lyman. Today, on July 25, 2023, at around 8 in the morning, an enemy K-52 helicopter was annihilated by an air defense system belonging to the naval infantry of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Ukrainian defense forces are claiming victories on the Staromayorsk line, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In the vicinity of Bakhmut, the Ukrainian army is continuing offensive operations north and south of the city. Deputy of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Hanna Malyar, reported that over the past week, from July 17th to 23rd, Ukrainian forces liberated more than 12 square kilometers on the southern front and an additional 4 square kilometers in the direction of Bakhmut. The Ukrainian army also managed to shoot down enemy drones and destroy ammunition supplies. The Russian army, planning to attack Ukraine, is now being distracted by the Ukrainian military, which is successively destroying strategic targets of the invaders.